as you can see, this documentary was about the Stacey Abrams fight in the 2018 midterms, and it hasn't changed. And if anything, it's gotten worse because of the COVID. And the cruel weaponization of vote by mail restrictions has turned the constitutional right to vote into a choice between life and death. So this Suppress 2020 documentary is a call to action against the calculated suppression of the right to vote in America. And I'd like to welcome Robert Greenwald. Is he on, Reggie?
Yes, he is.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Well, let me introduce you. Robert Greenwald is the president of Brave New Films, a nonprofit film company that he founded after a career in commercial television and film to motivate and educate viewers on the most pressing issues of the day. Brave New Films distributes its work free through social media and in concert with nonprofit partners and movements, and welcomes donations. So please go to their website. We can put that in the chat. They are accepting donations. Please welcome Robert Greenwald to talk about Suppress 2020 and answer your questions. And I do have some pre-questions. Why don't we put Robert on as speaker and I will ask the questions. Very good. Okay, so we have a couple questions that came in while people as people registered for our meeting, and one of them is by someone who also went to Antioch College. So, and since you had gone there as well, so their first question is: to what extent did your time at Antioch College contribute to your success as a filmmaker?
Well, thank you for defining it as a success. You know, on the dark days, we may question that word. I was at Antioch for 2 years, I think, maybe 2.5 years before I dropped out. And I think that the passion, the commitment to social justice there, I remember studying history and learning about the Cold War. And I think all of that was in the DNA on the campus. I'm not sure ever how human beings are complicated, right? How does one thing lead to another thing? It's not always clear because it's not a white paper, but certainly the environment and the passion and the caring about others and the systemic analysis, all of that was powerful and prevalent, and I hope had a positive impact on the work that I do today, where one of the key questions always at Brave New Films, because we're a very small nonprofit and we try to take on some of the big issues. So I always will ask the question, is it systemic? Can we connect the dots? Can we put a face on policy? And is anybody else doing this? So depending on the answers to those questions, I'm able to make the decision to move forward. And I like to think and believe that that's in concert, in alignment with Antioch's value structure.
Okay. They had a follow-up question. Would you consider making a film for Antioch to help with student recruitment or advancement?
I would certainly consider it. Unfortunately, we have a particular, not unfortunately, Brave New Films is a social justice organization. If Antioch wanted or needed a film done, I'd be happy to volunteer as an individual, but somebody would have to raise some funds in order to make that happen. One of the ugly but necessary words.
Okay, getting on. As you know, here in California, the Republicans have set up fake drop boxes, and we were wondering if you would like to comment on that.
Things are happening around voter suppression that at least I never would have dreamed of. And I consider myself a pretty hard-nosed, realistic New Yorker. In fact, during the film, I had multiple times an experience of, as the amazing women and men at Brave New Films would come in with the different stories, and I was sitting there hearing them, I truly had this sense that I wasn't in the United States of America, that I was in a time capsule, or I was back in Afghanistan, where I went to make our film about the war, or I was back in Pakistan, where I went to interview drone survivors. So I was having this belief, this feeling, this strange awareness that this was going on today in our country. How horrible. And the boxes are yet another example. I mean, think back for a minute. If a year ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, you said Republicans were going to put up boxes to collect ballots completely against the law, you probably would have been called an alarmist or an extremist, right? But we're seeing that, and we're seeing worse. And the good news, the really good news, is that screenings like this are happening all around the country. Our goal is to have 2020 free screenings before the 2020 election. And we're very close, maybe have even exceeded it. And to organize people. As Dr. Anderson says in the film, this is not somebody in a white robe hiding behind a screen. This is systemic. This is legal for the most part. This is planned. This is multiple ways of doing this. So the boxes are obscene, they're infuriating, and they are part of the bigger problem that I hope each and every one of you will commit to do something about, having seen the film. One thing, two things that otherwise you might not have done.
So following up on that, what do you think we can do?
Well, if you go to our website, bravenewfilms.org, there's many different options there, but there are all kinds of ways to approach it, depending on what your interest and skill set is. So obviously, clearly, and I saw it in the chat, there's elections coming, and that can make an enormous difference. Yes, they're trying to suppress the vote. Yes, we're going to have to work harder, smarter, tougher. Winning elections will have an impact, and will have an impact on voter suppression. In addition, there are all kinds of wonderful groups that have been in this battle for a long time, from the ACLU to Stacy's new group, Fair Fight, to state groups. Some of this can be solved on the state level. There's national legislation. Then there are people, elected officials and their staffers, who are working on the issues or introducing bills and legislation that we can support. There's media, there's social media, telling your friends and colleagues and neighbors and relatives. This film, by the way, in addition to being available for free, you can take a clip if you're on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. We have shorter clips available because our goal is to reach the diverse audience. It's no longer one-stop shopping. It's all over the place. So each and every one of you can reach your network of people and use the clips to tell them about it. And then they can get active. Again, elected officials, groups, media, blogging. There's just an infinite number of ways, ballot initiatives, legislation. Find out where you think you can make the most impact, where you have the comfort level. Some people are comfortable on the phone. Some people would die rather than get on the phone. They'd rather text or write. But I assure you, whatever your comfort level and whatever your skill set, there is a place for you in this battle to protect the vote and to protect democracy.
Okay, I'm going to keep going with the pre-questions. So there was a lot of suppression, as we saw in the 2016 election, in the midterm election. What influence do you think we'll feel here in 2020? I mean, has there been, maybe you could talk to improvements and things that have gotten worse, and obviously with the COVID, that's even more of an impact.
So obviously the malicious use of COVID as a way to suppress the vote is not only disgusting, but actually life-threatening to people. The good news has been the intensity and the thoughtfulness and the organizing to fight back against that. So one thing, for example, we did a short piece recruiting poll watchers. Historically, poll watchers have been older. With COVID in the Wisconsin election, which is where it was first highlighted, one of the problems was they didn't have enough poll watchers. So we've been working with a couple of organizations where they want to get several 100,000 poll watchers who, for the most part, are younger and for the most part are able to go and be there at the polls. So there's a problem and there is organization around trying to fight it. There have been a tremendous number of lawsuits. Obviously, we haven't won all of them, but we've won a lot of them. And the lawsuits every day, if you go on Twitter, you can follow Mark Elias, who's a great lawyer who's been doing a lot of work. Those lawsuits are making a difference. And then there's public pressure. I mean, you know, we're focused on the election as we should be, right? But I, in the long haul, believe in social movements, whether it's the women's movement, the peace movement, the civil rights movement, the labor movement. Those did not wait just for a piece of legislation. And I think with voting suppression, it's a similar idea, organizing people to fight that as a social justice issue. And there are many different ways of doing that and taking that on. So it's tough for sure, but there have been a significant number of victories, legal victories. And then we'll see in 2 weeks about other victories and how successful we've been in making sure that votes are counted. But don't lose sight of how outrageous this is. In this day and age that we're having to fight a fight, remind everyone, remind ourselves, I try to each day, people were killed for this years ago. And we're back fighting this fight again. It's an inherently racist battle. And it's a fight that requires all of us to say no.
On that note, one thing that I see is different in this election, maybe I just didn't notice it before, but the amount of Republicans against Trump and the Lincoln Project and the amount of money that they're putting in their ads. I mean, they're doing these short snippets, what you're talking in terms of social media that people can use and just almost trolling him. Are you involved in any of that?
Well, I'm not working directly with the Lincoln Project, although obviously with our social media, again, if you follow me on Twitter or Brave New Films or on Facebook, you will see lots of the good work going on because we highlight as many different videos and organizations as possible. And we also did quite a few pieces, particularly early on, short pieces, where I felt he wasn't being tacked strongly enough. I take no responsibility, right? I mean, the minute I saw that, you can see the room I'm in, I practically elevated through the bookcase because I said, what? So we immediately did a piece on I take no responsibility. On the horrors of police brutality and Black Lives Matter, we did a series of short pieces around that. And then we did COVID-related pieces. We had one 3 days ago, which is almost at 1 million impressions now. This breaks my heart. A young woman, 16, 17, in Florida, she and her father talk about the death of her grandparents, which she connects directly to COVID and directly to Trump. And because she's a wonderful spokesperson and because she's a caring young person, we're able to use that and get lots of attention. That's also, again, on Twitter or Facebook. We did a piece with seniors in Florida. This was really interesting, at least to me. We got requests from probably 7 or 8 different states. I wish we'd had the resources to do all of them. And the different people in the states that we work with were saying, help us. And what's the help they were asking for? Explain voting by mail. And I went, duh, right? Millions of people who've never voted by mail before, of all ages and backgrounds, need and wanted explainers. So we did the one in Florida, which I thought was particularly effective because it was seniors who were talking to other seniors. We did one for Georgia. We did a couple of pieces in Arizona, one with a Latino businesswoman talking about how where the money was going for businesses, and it certainly wasn't going to hers. So we've been doing this mixture, both smashing Trump hard and some of these other pieces that are more organizing pieces. And as more people moved into the space going after Trump, which was good, it allowed us to do some of the pieces that required casting, required a little more time and a little more effort, which is where we have, if you will, a unique role versus some of the others who were doing just great work on making us furious and laugh every day.
Oh my goodness. Okay, those are questions that I had and that were pre-questions. Anybody else from the audience? While we're waiting, I did have one. Maybe you've talked a little bit about it, but you have a lot of new media out. You're responding to what's happening. So this is your time to let us know about it as well.
Okay, well, what I'd encourage folks to do, if they're interested, of course, is sign up either for our email list, make sure you get everything, sign up for Facebook, Brave New Films, follow me on Twitter. If you're more adventurous, we're on Instagram Stories, and TikTok, which is probably only for those 16 to 20 years old. And what we're doing with all of that work for the next 2 weeks will be recycling some of the pieces we've done and introducing some new pieces. Yesterday, we released a piece about judges. And the idea was to make clear how important all the other judicial races are, not just the Supreme Court. And I think it's, again, it's a piece that took us probably a month to do. We name 8 of the worst Trump judges. And I got to tell you, the thing that, and I've seen it, probably 30, 40 times working on the edits, but the thing that upsets me the most each time, and we do this at the end of each judge, we talk about how bad they are on different issues. And then we say, 43 years old, life appointment. 39 years old, life appointment. And that's an issue that, frankly, we Democrats, liberals, progressives, however you identify yourself, have dropped the ball on. And it's going to hurt us for a long time. But we need to start now thinking and working and planning. And even assuming that the election goes well and that there are Democrats in control, there's going to be work to be done to encourage the politicians to deal with some of these structural issues of democracy. I mean, you've all read about filibuster, right, is one. Expanding the Supreme Court is another one. Money in politics, a tax on the very, very wealthy. There's going to be a series of big issues, and that's going to require each and every one of us, and I hope we'll be able to continue to do work on that. We'll also be releasing in the early spring a film that we just finished called Racially Charged, and it deals with the fact there are 13 million people in the carceration system for so-called misdemeanors. And that can be and this is, as you can imagine, almost always focused on young people and people of color, spitting, not having a seatbelt on, things that middle-class, comfortable white people never get cited for. And the film also takes it back historically. I mean, selfishly, one of the things I love about this work is I learn so much every time I do a film. And the misdemeanors go right back to right after Reconstruction, when the effort was to arrest, imprison, suppress, and control as many Black people as possible. And one of the easiest ways to do that was with misdemeanors. And our great producers went back and found stories from them, and then we found people today, and we connect and show how similar those stories are. So that it's not just today, and there's no crime wave that set this off. This is an effort to control a populace. And if you sign up, hopefully you'll be doing screenings of that, and we can talk about that in, I think it'll probably be late January or early February.
Okay, good to know you're not being hampered by COVID. So we did have, you know, we are going to have election. Hopefully we'll know November 3rd. I have a feeling we won't know for, I don't know. Hopefully we'll know that week. But what will you do if Biden wins, and what will you do if Trump wins?
If Biden wins, we will immediately go to work thinking first. Right after the Clinton-Trump election, I made a mistake and jumped right in. And we had a great plan worked out to pressure Hillary Clinton. Obviously, that plan was not implemented. And we jumped right into doing some work, which was important, but I think it needed more. We need more time to think it through. So first thing we'll do is, first of all, take a beat, because we've turned out a tremendous amount of content. We will focus on fundraising because we won't be able to continue to do this without some fundraising. And then if it's Biden, we will think about what are the key issues where we can have an impact, where we can work with some of the other groups that are all around the country, national, local, and identify an issue or two, maybe three, and focus on those. Find the elected officials, find the think tanks, and as I say, find the organizations, because just making a film is less than half of our work. More than half now is impact, because if we don't have an impact, then we shouldn't be doing this, because it's not about awards or any of those things. So a lot of time will go into identifying, figuring out the coalition, which elected officials really want to do something, which think tanks can be helpful, and where can we get the so-called casting from, and which advocacy organizations. That'll be a high-class problem if Biden's elected. I look forward to that. If Trump is elected, other than stopping my friends and colleagues from throwing themselves under the bus or moving out of the country, it will be figuring out how to stop him on, again, identifying maybe one or two of the issues where he would be most unleashed and cause the most damage in a second four-year term.
Okay, we have time for just one more question, and I'm assuming you know here in California we have Proposition 25, which is to get rid of cash bail, and do you think it will pass as it did in 2 other states in 2014?
I think so. I mean, obviously the bail bond industry is putting in a huge amount of money, and with initiatives on the ballot, it's, with elected officials, it's now clear money is a piece, but it's not the whole thing. Social media has helped balance out some of that. Initiatives, it does seem to be a lot of it money driven. So I am concerned because of the money they've put in. On the other hand, I can't remember, it's a staggering statistic. 1 out of every 10 or 20 people in California has a relative or somebody who's been impacted or affected by the carceration system. And those people are all going to vote to get rid of cash bail because it's totally and completely discriminatory. It doesn't make us safer. It punishes people for not having enough money. And it takes the eye off the ball of where there are dangerous people who are a threat to others' health and safety, and just casts a wide net for just people who can't put up $100 to get out.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here. We just loved viewing your film, even though it's very hard to watch.
Well, thank you very much for the work. Thank you for organizing. I look forward to all of us celebrating in 2 weeks and picking up this conversation in the new year with a new film.
Definitely. Thanks. Okay.